The condition is really crazy condition.
And that shouldn't give away the whole secret to professional windsurfing.
Maciek giving Antoine elbow a run for his body. Here we go. Woo! What a finish!
The guy is kind of talking bullshit.
The team's just got to work a little harder. Welcome to the Windsurfing Podcast, back again for episode 11. And this week, we have a board shaper. Yes, we do. He was a latecomer to the windsurfing scene, but he quickly got into board shaping, worked for some big brands, F2 being the biggest, and now he owns his own brand. He talks about, well, running his own brand, dealing with sailor contracts, and some pretty big names. Ricardo Campello, one of them, and actually our podcast host, Maciek Rutkowski. He talks about living on the beach in Vargas in the centre of Philip Costa's dad before Costa was born. Starts off a bit slow, but it soon warms up, and there is some gems in this one. It is, of course, Patrik Diethelm.
Patrik, thank you for joining me. You're currently in Australia, so the time difference and the scheduling and all that was not the easiest. And in the end, we're recording it. It's late night in my place, and it's 4 a.m. in Australia. So I think that speaks a lot already about your working ways and how you function. It wasn't really a problem for you to get up at 4. So definitely really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, hi Maciek, and hi everyone else out there. So no, it's not too bad. I normally don't get up at 4 o'clock, that's for sure. I probably work rather like late night. But anyway, it's okay. It's just a one-off, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're based in Australia, as mentioned, but you're originally half Swiss, half Italian, if my recollection is correct. And you grew up in Switzerland in kind of a landlocked place. And from what I understand, you were not really meant to be a windsurfing shaper, were you?
No, definitely not. So yes. So wait. Yeah. Yes, I'm. My father is Swiss and my mother is Italian. So I'm born and I grew up in Switzerland. Also part in Italy, but most time in Switzerland. And no, I'm actually an electromechanic because this is what you do in Switzerland. There's no shaper and no stuff like that. So you do a proper job, And I started shaping very late. I started shaping when I was 27 years old. I started doing competition also very late, like when I was 26 years old. And I felt very disadvantaged because everybody else had some custom boards and stuff back in the day. You were allowed to use custom boards. And I was there with my production board, 8.5, 9 kilos. Okay. But, 50 centimeters wide. And then I had a friend and he made a few custom boards himself, and then started, and I loved it so much because it also shows my technical side as an electromechanic. And back in the day there wasn't composite, wasn't really something you could learn, there were no books, nothing. It's just you go for it. And learning by doing, and it was good fun. First board, obviously, we throw in a bean. Second one was then better. So that's how it started.
I was about to ask, were they any good? Probably construction wise, not so much, but shape wise, flow wise.
Now the first board, I think, construction wise and shape wise would have been good, but because it came out the vacuum, we ripped off the pill ply, and then the guy was like, "Oh, now we have to start the finishing," and I was like, "No, we'll be fine. I was so nervous and really, really, really want to use it, And we just put this very, very quick coat, but it wasn't good enough. And the board was so full of pinholes, and we just I just used it, and it just soaked up water so quick, and it got heavy. Like in 2 hours, it was like 20 kilos or something. And then we just had to throw it away because there's no way you get that water out again. But of course, the next board, then proper finish, took the time. And yeah, that was good. Yeah, and it was a quick start, to be honest. When I started shaping, it also was a time where the boards just quickly went wider and wider and wider. I'm not sure, of course, guys out there remember. My biggest course race board was it was a F2 Thommen, 68 centimeters wide. It was a 305. So it was 305 long, super massive thick in the middle, especially thin tail. And I would remember there was the AHD 310. It was a blue one. When we saw that board, we were like, what is that? That's not even a board. It looks so weird. And it won everything. It won simply every race, every heat, everything. And we were like all shocked. And we were like, Jesus Christ. And then, of course, F2 also built a big one. And then they won again, obviously, because back in the day, F2 was just winning everything. But yeah, and the board just went wider and wider and wider every year. And then it was 70. And then I remember the drop FL10, 70 wide, FL12, 72 wide, and then 74. And then F2 came with 76 and 78, and then it was 80. And then Starboard came with 85, 90, 95. And I think this is the time where you remember very well. And then it just went wider every year until 1 meter. And then at 1 meter, everybody said, no, stop here, because this is just going too far. And I heard actually that Starboard already had a board for 1 meter 20 wide. And I was like, this is insane. And but anyway, it stopped at 1 meter. And that was good because all the boards I made was something not yet there. It was completely new. So because I was windsurfing myself in a very high level, it was easy for me to understand what I'm looking for, and just shaped new boards again and again. So, but after like, I think the 5th board was the board which actually Finian Maynard won. He was second in Paros.
Your 5th board. That was your 5th shaped board.
Fifth board, yeah.
That's insane.
I could actually count it. It was maybe even four, 5, maximum 5, really, because but as I said, this is something completely new, and so yeah. And then we chopped the tails, and we had the flappers in the back. There was Roberts had some already started with some cutouts, and it was what I did actually from the beginning, because I didn't really know which geometry, like say for cutouts or something, or how much should I cut on the tail and so on. I already started to use this really thick PVC in the tail, and I really started to cut with the router already on the beach. And it was such an advantage because I just shaped the board, laminated it, put those big blocks of PVC, went on the beach, and I just started to cut with the saw and cutouts and whatever, and tested around so quickly. So you come back, do some cutouts, 5 minutes, go back on the water, and it is like 10 times a day. And then until the board was done, and then
pretty much a standard procedure these days. We kind of, everybody develops boards like this. But I wanna stick to that. I wanted to ask you things from before, but you mentioned that your 5th board that you ever shaped or ever produced with your own hands is one that Finian, he lost his gear, I think, coming to Paris. I mean, the airline lost it.
Yeah.
And you borrowed him a board, and he came second, which was at that time a great result for him. It was a course racing board. And that kind of directly opened the door for you at F2, right? I had no idea it happened so quickly that it was just your fifth board.
It was super quick. As I said, I started shaping just when I was like 27, and I made my first board actually exactly in that year, which sunk. And then I made the second one for that year, which was already good because it was actually the widest around. And
what year are we talking about? Like 98, 90?
So the board from Finian is exactly in 2000. So go 4 years back. So it's 96. 3 years, sorry, not 4, 3 years back. So in 97, and then 98, I made another board. Actually, I made two in that year. And there was, I remember towards the end of the year, there was another guy who wanted the board for me, and I was like, nah, I'm not selling them, you know. So I shaped my first board for somebody else. Actually, it was actually 98, and in 99, I made two boards. So that makes 5, yeah. And then one board, exactly that one, I went to Paros, and I didn't. Story was really funny. I was in Silver Plan. Of course, I got a wild card from PWA because I was Swiss, and then so I joined the PWA, but I did not have that board. And that board actually was just laminated, but it wasn't finished. And after the event, they struggled with all the gear from all the PWA guys to go to Paros, and they somehow we found a solution, and we got a trailer, like a pig trailer, where a farmer had some pigs inside, and I just hooked it on my van, and I just drove to Paros basically because I wanted to go there with my van anyway, so I have all the gear and I can sleep in the car and whatever. So I had this massive trailer in the back with all this gear from all those PWA guys. And what I wasn't thinking about is when I came to the border. So I came to the border, and the guy at the border was like, if I have some documents for all that stuff in the back? I'm like, oh, that's not even mine. And the guy was looking at me with his big eyes. I'm like, what do you mean it's not yours? I'm like, and I explained him the situation. He was just shaking his head. He's like, look, there's no way I can enter Italy and drive through Italy with that trailer, because I could actually sell everything, obviously. And I was like, so he gave me a paper, and he said, look, just fill out whatever you have there, and we declare it like as a transit. And I'm like, what? And I look at him like, man, look, back there, it's all the gear. Imagine for Micah Buzianis and filming all these guys. And I'm like, I'm not going to unpack all the board bags and sail bags and count whatever is in there. And he looked at me like, just estimate. So I was sitting there like for an hour trying to estimate whatever could be in those bags, and just gave him the paper. He signed it off, and I just went, catch the ferry, and went to Paros. And there I was a week earlier on the beach with my board, which wasn't finished. So went to the car painter, put some primer on, and I went back and I was sanding it on the beach. And then the first guys from PWA came to train a bit early as well. And I was just always white at the beach. And everybody looked at me kind of, what the hell, what is this guy? So anyway, I finished that board. And then like 2 or 3 days before the event, then Finian came and all the guys came. And then Finian was upset from the very beginning because his gear hasn't arrived. And he was looking around, and I'm not sure if you remember, there was this, what was it, starboard? It was 85 wide. I think it was the first 85 wide starboard. And he was just looking for because that board, I think it was with Wojtek winning everything. Remember?
Yeah.
And,
it was this wide board with a stripe of wood down the side,
exactly.
like a 155 formula.
I don't remember anyway. And there were a few other boards already at this size. RRD had some, Roberto Ricci had this 80 wide, I think, or something, but nobody had 85. I think Starbell was they were the only, and my one was actually also 85, because the year before it was 80, and I was thinking, like, come on, just make a jump of 5 centimeters, not just towards something, make it 82. So I went to 85, and then the Starboard guys, they came with that thing, and then I had mine anyway, and then Finian was looking especially for that board, because he knew that it's the killer board. And I, by the way, I had one as well. And I said, look, Finian, let's do like this. Let's test both boards. And if my custom board is okay, you can have this double. And he's like, no, there's no way that Maya is going to test my board and stuff. And I'm like, come on. Anyway, then he left. And then he came back again and said, okay, if you really want, let's do it. You know, Finian. And I was like, okay, let's go. And he's like, yeah, but I'm not testing with you. Kind of, who the hell are you?
Yeah.
Like, don't worry. I'm just straight line, upwind, I'm down, I'm okay. I'm just tactics, probably not the best. And that's why in the events, obviously, I'm not so far ahead. So anyway, we went out. But what I had Deboche fin back then. And he had the G10 fins from North Shore Maui. He had like 58, and I already had 64 centimeters. And there was no way he could keep up. Really, I just basically spritzed him, and he was so upset. He was hitting his sail, and it was like, wow, what's going on? Because he had my custom board, and I was on the starboard. And he was like, I told you that board is crap. There's no way. I'm like, okay, look, let's swap. But obviously we also swap fins, because I was using my fin. And I killed him even more. I was just going, and I was so happy. I was like, what? That board was like 5.5 kilos. And I just killed it. We came back to the beach, and Fini was like, but it was 2 times actually slower than me. And he was like, that's impossible, something wrong, something shit, whatever. And he was hitting the sail. And I'm like, Finian, you should maybe change the fin. And he was like, oh, I can't be the fin. Hey, we swapped fin. No, actually, we just swapped the boards with the fin. And there was no way. He was just gone, like miles. And then he went away from me, started to line up with, I think there was even a Rappe, Christopher Rappe. And of course, Micah, and he was lining up with them, and he came back. He said, Patrik, I need exactly that board, and I need your fin. I'm like, look, I'm so happy to give you actually my custom board, because it would make me proud, but I can't give you the fin. So he was running around everywhere trying to find deboche fin. And I remember Cigolino, actually, Rosati was selling him a few prototypes which weren't that good. They had wrong rake and stuff. But anyway, of course, Finian knew how to play with rake and stuff. So he just shoved the fin in and played and went out. And he came second on my board, which I finished on the beach just a few days before the event. And I was so happy. It was unbelievable. And back when I was in Switzerland again, later on, there was another Swiss event, the marathon. And I finished first with 4 minutes ahead of the second guy. 4 minutes, imagine. And that was, then everybody was like, nah, this is impossible. I was cheating. I was rounding the marks and stuff like this. And they were looking at because in the boats, the first guys, they always check bottom, top, buoy. And then I did everything perfect, and it was 4 minutes ahead. And actually, the second guy then actually confirms that no, Patrick was always in front of me all the time. And there was Luis Markegger, the Italian F2 importer, was a friend of mine as well, because I was actually sailing on F2. And
well, on your own boards, but
but everybody did. Back then you had custom boards and you just put the graphics of the brand you were sponsored. That was completely normal. Everybody, it was not even one guy using the actual board from the brand. Everybody had custom boards, Thommen shapes, or even from Boudoir HD and stuff, and just put another graphic on top. That was completely normal. So, and this guy came and it was like, oh, Patrik, this is impossible. And I said, look, try my board, please. And he went out, obviously, with his guys, with his friends who were pretty much the same level as him. And he came back and said, Patrik, we need to call F2 to put this board right now in production. And I looked at him, I'm like, what? And he actually called up F2. And there was the Swiss importer from F2, Walle. I'm not sure if you probably know him, Walle Schwab. And these two together were calling up the F2 guys, and then they came to Switzerland, actually with Peter Thommen, to check out that board. So then Peter Thommen, imagine, I mean, I'm Swiss, Peter Thommen is Swiss, and Peter Thommen is just that legend shaper from back in the day. He was just that God, shape God, like, imagine. And he came and I was so nervous. And he came with this cigarette, with this dark face and cigarette. Started a few words speaking in Swiss German. He looked at the board and I looked at him and he just put the board down, went away. And I'm like, oh shit, what's happening now? So anyway, with the F2 guys, it was then it's not possible because Thommen is the exclusive shaper from F2. So we cannot just take my board and put it in production and blah, 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 blah. And they straight away, the same day, offered me a deal. Basically, they pay me the flight and everything to Maui. Imagine, first time in my life, Maui paid for me. It was like, and back in the day, windsurfing was huge. Windsurfing was really, really big. And for a no name like me to get the flight paid from F2, the biggest, by far biggest, strongest windsurf brand ever, I was so stoked. And anyway, they paid me the flight. I went to Maui, and Peter already shaped 2 boards, with a few improvements we discussed already before. And I tested the boards, and anyway, so on. So yeah, this is how it started. Actually, it was even better. They didn't offer me just the flight to Maui. It was actually, they offered me a job to test gear, because there's a little earlier story before that, why I started competition. And this was because of North Sails back then, because North Sails was, every year they went to Gran Canaria testing their gear, their wave hardcore. They had a marketing thing they called North Sails Hardcore, and it was all this hardcore stuff, you're unbreakable and whatever. And then I was actually every year 3 months in Gran Canaria. Well, this is another story. I'm not sure if you want to go there. It's actually,
I know the story. Let's cut this story, the first Gran Canaria story, short. Is it true that you were sleeping in between the sails at Philip Koster's dad's windsurf center?
Yep, that's absolutely true. And there was nobody there. There was no Philip Koster, and there was not even Kira, his bigger sister, his older sister. And yeah, that's so, well, okay. One step back then, I try to cut it short, but it's so funny. Imagine me as a 20-year-old Swiss guy, never, ever, ever catching a plane in my life before. I was just into skiing competition and stuff like this. But windsurfing catch my attention much earlier. When I was 13 years old, started windsurfing, and so different. It was, I was used to the Swiss Alps and skiing and everything, and then windsurfing, beach, sun, waves. It was completely different, and I was so attracted to it. Anyway, and 20 years old, when I finished my apprenticeship, I bought a ticket to Gran Canaria because, one, it is a party place, like big time party place, and this is what I want to do. I went there actually with my friend to Playa del Ingles. So I booked Playa del Ingles, full hotel, but I knew there's a good windsurfing place too. That's why actually we choose Gran Canaria. So party, and then went to try to find some rental place, and I ended up in Vargas at Rolf's place. That's so funny. It was this one building where he had all the windsurfing gear, because some local guy started building a house without any permission, and then obviously the Shire just stopped, and he wasn't allowed to finish the building, and anyway, and had to pay a fine. I don't remember exactly, but Rolf was able to actually get that place to have it as a windsurfing storage. And because Gran Canaria in Spain was actually a bit hardcore back then, also with stealing and it was allowed to have someone sleeping there during the night as a night guard. And Rolf Köster, he had this German guy there, and it was so funny. One day we all arrived not in the morning. We are obviously everybody arrived at lunch to go windsurfing because still a bit hangover from the night before. So we arrived, and there was this one guy. He said to this other German guy, and actually his name is Ralph. So Rolf is the father of Philip, and Ralph was this other guy. I remember it as it was yesterday. And he's like, Ralph, that was a good evening last night, wasn't it? And Rolf, the father of Philip, looked at Ralph, looked at the other guy, looked at us. Hey, Ralph opened up his eyes, and he was like, basically, shut up. Hey, Rolf immediately understood that he wasn't sleeping there, that he went to Playa del Ingles for party. And Rolf, if you know Philip's father, man, you run. And that guy ran. He just didn't say a word, just run. He didn't pack anything, nothing, and just ran. And in Vargas, there are all those rocks, and Philip Köster's father, barefoot, he was running on those rocks, and this guy just ran in front of him, and he never came back. And someone else took then all his stuff, and gave it to him. And as a joke, I said to Rolf, next time I come and I play the night guard because I'm Swiss and you can rely on me. And he's like, okay, you just give me a call when you're here. So my holiday was just 2 weeks. So at the end, I said, bye, left. And really a year later, I called him up. There was no cell phone and no email. So I called him up with the old phone, and I asked him, hi, it's me, Patrik. And he's like, who is that? I'm like, Patrik, remember the Swiss guy from last year? I told you I'm ready. I have 3 months time. And he's like, oh yeah, sorry, I'll pick you up right now. And I'm like, no, I'm still in Switzerland. So are you okay? Should I come? And he's like, I told you to call me when you're here. And I was like, what? Hey, seriously, I pretty much hang up the phone, booked the ticket, went to Gran Canaria, called him up again, and he picked me up. And I was 3 months in Vargas in that building, basically sleeping between cells. And no, it's not true. They had a few rooms, and he was actually allowed to put a roof because the building was not finished. So there was just this one room, nothing. It was just a bed and just boards and cells, everything. And I was sleeping there and guarding it for 3 months. I did not leave. I mean, if you know Gran Canaria, the beach, Vargas, I did not leave that beach for 3 months. I was for the first time in my life, 3 months at that sick windsurfing place. And I was just every morning, every evening, just on the water all day. So yes, I was actually living in Philip Köster's house before he was even born for 3 months though. And and then
somehow they managed to turn that into a home, sort of. I don't know how that happened. It's basically, if anybody's been to Vargas, you arrive, it's kind of middle of nowhere, and there's this one building, one house, And yeah, that's Philip's. That's where Philip grew up, and this is where the legend began, I believe.
Hey, it was amazing because then I went there every year, 3 months again and again, but I didn't sleep there anymore because obviously, like I got a bit, I wanted to party more and again and stuff.
Yeah.
And when Kira was born, I remember I was holding her and with Rolf and then Philip came. He was born as a baby and I was holding him, and then every year I saw this guy growing up and I knew. Imagine a kid growing up at Varga at the beach, like 50 meters, you're at 40, 50 knots and waves and everything. And I was like, that kid, he's going to be world champion one day for sure. And well, it didn't took long and he was. It was amazing. Yeah.
You did actually sponsor him with F2. I know we got really sidetracked, but you did sponsor him with F2.
Yeah, this is there were no small boards. And I was like, I'll shape you something. And I remember we got these prototypes and stuff and we chopped the nose and I don't remember, just try to support with little boards because there was nothing around at its size. And yeah, but it wasn't long with F2. He got actually I forgot where I really wanted to go with this. And when I was there in Vargas, there were these Norse guys coming and testing the gear. And Rolf, he just said to the guy, you know what, if you want to test something, just give it to Patrik. He destroys everything. So they came out with, Patrik, la, la, la. And they were German, so I speak German with them. I remember actually it was Raul Joa, who's still there. Actually, okay, it's Stuarton now. It's not Norse anymore.
Yeah, but he's anyway. Brand manager, right?
Exactly, right. Still the same guy. And there was another guy, I think his name was Raul or something. No, actually not Raul. No, Raul was Raul, of course. And it doesn't matter. Anyway, and then, so I got the gear and then they left some gear there for me to take like long-term testing. And I was using it every day and that gear was so good. And anyway, and then he said, Patrik, why are you not doing any competitions? I'm like, yeah, well, what? In Switzerland, there's no waves and stuff. And he's like, back then, if you did the forward and the back, you're already champion. So there was nothing else. Okay, tabletop and whatever. And I said, no, I love waves. And then he said, okay, whenever you go to Switzerland and you want to do some competition, contact that guy. And he gave me an address. So of course, when I was back in Switzerland, I was like, oh man, if I could be sponsored and stuff, that would be so good. So I contacted actually the Swiss importer from Norcels and F2, because I wasn't F2 there, I was nobody. But F2, I knew the guy because of the skiing and snowboarding, F2 snowboarding, because my brother was also into snowboarding and he was working actually at this place. So I contacted F2 obviously, and then got immediately a good deal. I was buying all my gear for a good price, basically. So and contacted the Norse guy, and he also just offered me gear to buy. And my first competition, so funny, I finished 13th, but 13th in Switzerland with a fleet of like 80, 100 at the start line wasn't bad back then. There were some really, really, really good guys. And I had the cell number of another guy because I just put a 1 in the back and they thought it was him. So he was actually 13 and I was nowhere. And I was like, that can't be right. And I tried to, we had like 15 races and I tried to find, I remembered who was in front of me and in the back all the time. And then I went to the judges and basically explained them. And then this guy came to me and said, no, Patrik, don't tell anyone. Please, come on, you knew, it doesn't matter. You can do better next year, but leave me there, at 13. I'm like, no, I can't do that. So yeah, it was fun. Anyway, and then I started shaping boards because I had such a disadvantage because, the boards with the seam at the rail, like the plastic boards. Yeah. And so many guys had just those custom boards, like 5 kilos. And I'm like, Jesus, no way. And this is when I started shaping with my friend and Paros and whatever.
Yeah. And
So,
then you
yeah.
get to that, you get to that meeting your idol, as they say. Don't ever meet your idols, in Peter Thommen, you know, and he kind of blew you off, didn't he? I mean, he's like, who's that kid, you know? Who does he think he is? He just has one board, you know, or whatever. How was that? How was that feeling? Motivating?
He's Swiss, obviously, so it was easy for me to talk with him, and I immediately understood his character. So, and I was always a bit, had this really big respect, and because I got the job from F2 as a tester, actually F2 and Norse, because it was boards more group. So my main job was then, I was the testing guy. I was testing everything. They just gave me gear and I was testing. I got all these tons of cells and mass and tools and everything and boards. And Thommen was shaping and I was testing. Of course, I was also shaping just my own prototypes and not even prototypes, just custom boards and a few boards for friends. And this became more. And then I went to Lake Garda, where I rented a place where another shaper was speeding, Carl Geller. That was fun. I went there and I just paid some money to rent the place as well, and I just started shaping more and more and more. And then Thommen came to Lake Garda. He was also shaping there, and I was actually finishing the boards for Thommen, and I was testing the boards, gave a feedback and so on. But that it didn't really last long, to be honest, because the thing was Björn Dankebeck was on this on the search. Remember the wave sail search?
Yeah, I guess that's when PWA slalom kind of went down, right?
Yeah, there was no PWA slalom anymore. It was before PWA slalom stopped, and there was just course racing, and
Formula, basically Formula windsurfing, right?
Formula was later then, but anyway, yeah, it was this time. And Björn stopped the races and actually went just traveling and video and trips and marketing and stuff. So they called it the Surge. And Peter without Björn, there was just these two together, they were like unbeatable. I mean, Thommen just shaping 50 boards a day basically, and Björn just testing, and just that was unbelievable. I mean, what they did back in the day, was never happened again, did it? I mean, 44 times world champion.
42, yeah. Like 12 years of absolute domination overall, 12 years in overall straight.
And not just winning every competition, it was basically winning every heat all the time, every time. And it was just, so yeah. And then Thommen had this, this was also the time when windsurfing went down, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know exactly, but I guess, contracts got cut and less budget here. And also I think he had his dream of starting his own brand and whatever. I don't remember exactly, but somehow I remember the day when F2 came to me and said, Patrik, do you want to be shaper for F2? And I was like, what? There's no way I can do this. And, and blah, blah. And then they had to look for a shaper. And, but the deal was that I'm not shaping waveboards, because anyway, I have no idea how to shape waveboards. Basically, I'm just a racer. So the idea was like I shaped because slalom came back and freestyle came. Oh, Jesus. Remember freestyle, the first king of the lake. So you do a body drag, head wash, and you get like 10 points. I think that the sickest move, duck tech. Imagine the duck tech was a mandatory move. It was like, and the first was the air jibe, was this first, let's say, proper freestyle move, an air jibe. You won the event basically if you do an air jibe. That was insane. And then of course with all those freestyle boards, again, something completely new came. They weren't wave boards, they weren't slalom boards, but it just had to plane early, pump as quick as possible within a short distance, and to do some moves and whatever, you know. And then I just took slalom boards and I chopped the nose and chopped, you know, just make something, and that was good for me because there were all those disciplines completely new. There was course racing, wasn't course racing anymore, as you said. It was formula, basically 90 to 1 meter wide. It just got stuck at 1 meter wide anyway. When I started shaping then as a shaper F2, my first board, by the way, my first production board with F2 was, I mean, not the board which Peter Thommen improved, but my real own shaped production board with F2 was the FX. Was a formula board, 1 meter wide. And there was freestyle, completely new. And then F2 brought back slalom because they just marketing. They said, let's organize some local events and do this speed. It was speed. It was all about speed. And F2 was not anymore fun and function. They had the idea, basically, F2. Well, probably you need to censor what I say, so fucking fast. And that was the marketing thing. It was fucking fast, you know, F2. And it was just, everything was just speed. And they even speed boards for like big cells, 9 square meter cells. Don't no matter, whatever, just fast. And that was a completely new challenge. And because slalom boards weren't those slalom boards anymore. My biggest slalom board at the beginning was like 49 centimeters wide. Or I think 50 was the F2 Thommen 270, whatever. And then obviously slalom board just we were chopping noses so radical and just went wider. And it was good for me. It was really good for me because there was nothing like it before. And I was young. I was so keen, and I made so many prototypes and cutting the cutouts at the beach. People look at me. I was there with the generator, and people look at me like, what is he doing? And a year later, everybody was just doing the same, you know, cutting at the beach and testing and chopping and whatever.
Do you think these older shapers, they were a bit stuck in their ways of doing things, like busting out 50 prototypes for one model, you know, and you just kind of, you took a different approach and that's what made you successful? Or
it's all the time like it. When a new sports come, I mean, look at now and foiling. Let's think 3 or 4 years back, foiling. What was foiling? Which foil was good? I mean, there was just do it. Just anything kind of, whatever comes out of the water was working. And the foils look completely different from each other. Mast bending forward, wings forward, and so many different things. And if you look now, they're all a bit similar. I mean, they still look very, very different, but you will see, you give it another few years and pretty much everything will look very, very similar. So when windsurfing came, it was just standing there with this wooden boom and this triangle sail, just not even planing, and that was actually windsurfing. And then competitions, and then it was imagined like this. There was so much room to play. So it's not like you shape by millimeter or a little bit here and a little bit of cut out there. The shapes were like from single concave to 5, 6 concaves to whatever, V and like a lot of V, little v, no V, even convex, and they were like really rough shape ideas. So there was just, you just shape a board, try next one and try next one, try next one and try. And Peter, he was making so many boards. I mean, like, this is, I don't even know how somebody can shape so many boards a day. I remember he always came to the beach completely white with foam and a cigarette, you know, look around how the boards go. He still had all his styrofoam around him when he was standing at the beach. But when the time changed as I said, when of course the boards went wider, but scoop rocker lines, it's not like you have to invent them completely new. You basically chop them and bend them out so they don't stuck. Okay, the flat, of course, went a bit shorter, but you played with what was there. Just just played around with it, what was already there. But
Yeah,
what was already
but because
there,
you are not in the business for 20 years, your mind was more open, right? Your mind was not infected by all the ideas of the last 20 years,
I don't know. It's just me as an electromechanic, and also budget. Of course, budgets got cut like big time, so it wasn't even possible to just shape 50 boards a day. And, so it was more like you shape one board, you test, and from there you make the next one. Because I remember I had my budget was allowing me, I think, like 80 boards per year or something. And then, of course, I could make more, but on my own budget expense. Of course, I didn't. No, I was shaping more, of course, also all the team rider boards and custom boards, but then just purely prototype testing for the range. With the budget I got, I think I made like 80 boards or something, which is these days is a lot. But back then when I started, it was nothing, because they make like, okay, not 50 boards a day, but I'm pretty sure he was at least shaping 10, 15 boards a day, just a blank, and then another guy just finished it, laminated it. And then there were all these boards at the beach testing. It was just how they traveled with those. I remember like 13, 15 board bags and sail bags and mast bags coming to an event. It was like they had so many boards and so much gear. That was ridiculous. They had for every event special boards. If the event was in south of France or the event was in Sylt, they had completely different boards. And this time when I started shaping, the rules already changed. And it was like, oh, you go to production board, you have to register the boards, maximum 3 boards and 6 sails and stuff like that, or 2 boards and 4 sails per event.
Per event, yeah.
To limit all that gear. So basically, we had to make production boards, and it just was my way. I make one board, test, and from there I make the next one. And
and then I remember like
motivation. I think it's the motivation again. If you shape for so many years, you have all those world champion titles with your rider, and then suddenly the whole thing changes. Maybe you also lose a little bit of motivation. And obviously for me, it was all new. So that little budget probably for Peter Thommen was my big budget, because I didn't have any budget ever before. So for me, it was big. For him, probably was nothing. So that's why he started his own brand. And for me, it was like a new world. And
seems like it's always like this in the business, that at some point you need to give a chance kind of to the young guy. Now you're the old guy, and at some point maybe there will be, although your brand is a little bit different because it's so centered around you, but there is this kind of guys that you think like him shaping, like, and it was the same with you. I remember a press release that I think it came from F2 that I read in the magazine. The title was, "Who the fuck is Patrik Diethelm?"
Exactly. I remember that one too. There was the marketing manager, because when there was this change from Thommen to me, just everybody was shaking head and was like, we're not going to sell any board anymore, because if we have a no-name shaper, you're not selling anymore.
And then boards, they had a massive Thommen written like on the deck,
You could basically also take away F2 and just leave Thommen, basically, because the brand was just Thommen and Björn. It wasn't, okay, it was F2, but whoever knew F2 knew it was Thommen and Björn. So you could actually write Björn, Thommen, or Thommen, Björn on the board rather than F2. But anyway, so when I started, so it was in discussion. I wasn't even shaping it. We had those meetings, and of course I was motivated. I'm like, I can shape waveboards, and so on, and also wave changed a little bit because there was John Sky. John Sky was this young rider, and he did those freestyle tricks on the waves, and everybody was like, what was that? What was that? He just did a Spock on the wave, but because it was on a wave, they, of course, the pro wave riders, like Josh and Gula, I remember, was like, that's not wave sailing, kind of, it's crap. But of course, all the young, because it was new, and then you got different boards. The boards, we even made some little Spock tails on wave boards and stuff. So I was like, no, I can shape wave boards. And anyway, it's changing, and it's just, but everybody was shaking their head that, no, not possible. And there was this marketing guy, he was like, don't worry. I made Patrik a superstar. And I was like, okay. And this guy was like, with marketing, you can do anything. He said, even if Patrik wouldn't shape, nobody would ever know. I can make a hero out of anybody. And he did. He was like, he had this marketing vision of me, and just exactly who the fuck is Patrik? And it's just, but as a big brand, it's also quite easy. I mean, if you have two back then, you reach everyone. You reach simply everyone. And then, there was not much like this media platforms and stuff like this. It was still like print. And whoever was into windsurfing, you just buy the magazines and all that. You were basically within the sport. Now, of course, there are so many windsurfers, they probably don't even look anymore. They just windsurf probably still with their old gear. There are a lot of passive windsurfers. I mean, how you say, like they're still windsurfing, but they don't.
Yeah, but they don't live the sport. They don't follow so much.
Back then, it was like, I think there was no windsurfer who did not live the sport. So, but still, even I had the chance to be the successor of Thommen. It's no way that you can ever be as famous as a shaper anymore than those guys were, because windsurfing was just going down every year like this. It was a new sport, and it went so specific, like so many different disciplines. Back in the day, you had one board, one sail, that's it. You go windsurfing, and then a few custom boards, and that's it. And everybody kind of enjoyed the sport. But
but that shaper switch, were the numbers dropping like crazy anyway, or did somebody actually approach you and tell you like, look, man, like Thommen left and the fucking numbers are just plummeting? What's up?
No, I'm not talking about the numbers dropped from F2. Windsurfing in general.
I know, but F2 gets into that, right? And at the time they are changing the shaper, also their numbers are dropping just because the market is dropping. But did somebody ever relate that to that shaper change?
It was actually the other way around, because F2 had, by the way, they had two shapers. There was Werner Knigler and Peter Thommen. Werner Knigler was shaping, I think like he was shaping the Xantos, like the free ride boards, and Thommen was obviously with Dompierre and always into this competition segment. And the numbers, they worldwide dropped. Look, you can actually compare it with snowboarding. There were people, freaks snowboarding. They weren't even biting. They were just standing on a plank of wood and just with this string in the front, kind of. And then snowboarding came better and with Crazy Banana, but there was nobody into snowboarding, and everybody who saw snowboarding was like, look at those freaks, kind of freaks, They were freaks. Kind of nerds or freaks, and you're like, what are they doing, because you're skiing. And then suddenly Then I think it was like dead for a while. When you didn't hear anything about snow, and then just bang, and snowboarding went. They went up, they went overhang. They were just snowboarding. Everything was about snowboarding and carving, because with the skis you couldn't carve back then. They were just had this parallel outline, and you kind of drift. And the snowboards with those radius, how you say, like the whatever those outlines, you could carve, and everybody started to snowboard. Where's snowboarding now? Nobody, nowhere. I mean, who is snowboarding these days again? Still. But if you think about it, my son is 6 years old. He started already skiing a little bit, but he never ever
in the desert in Australia or what?
Oh, when we're in Switzerland, of course, visiting grandparents. But imagine him when he's like 13 years old, maybe 15 years old. If he sees a guy having a race snowboard, he will probably say, "Whoa, what is this? This is new for him," because he's never seen it before, because it was dead. And I don't know. I have a feeling this whole thing will come back. I just have a feeling. Sport is always like, it's very, very popular, and then it kind of dies and it comes back. And I think look at fashion. I mean, the pants they're wearing these days is what we were wearing 30 years ago. So same with fashion and the colors, and it just always comes back, because this new generation haven't seen it. So I hope windsurfing is coming back, like big time. And I have actually a good feeling that it will be. Right now, isn't there a big change in windsurfing again? Because now with foiling, you can do anything on a foil. You can rip waves, you can go freestyling, you can do slalom, upwind cruiser, you do everything on foil now. And that's just the beginning. Imagine 10 years from now. Yes, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you ask Brasinho about ripping foils on waves, he will be too happy, but definitely the freestyle and the racing is somewhere there, already. So
with some time to wait.
Yeah.
You wait.
But anyway, we got fucking super sidetracked here because we were talking about you and your story, and and we ended up in snowboarding. So
it's just but I think it's good. I mean, whoever looks at this video gets a feeling and an idea of what's windsurfing today, what was windsurfing back then. And if you compare with other sports, it gives a good idea how to look at it.
It's funny for me that you got your kind of dream job, but you didn't actually stop competing. And at some point, probably in the mid 2000s, you were actually really good, like top 10 World Cup, speed vice world champion, if I'm correct. And did you not ever like get tempted to like give it a go, like fully? Like you're doing two jobs and you're being top 10. I mean, what if you did one? I mean, you're probably the most competitive person I know. So
yeah,
anybody that wants to try their muscle endurance, challenge Patrik to a beer holding contest like this, or like in front of you or outside, just holding a bottle of beer for as long as you can.
It was the mast.
Yeah, but I think there was a beer one that you guys were standing there all night.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm very easy to challenge, but I think everybody has something he can do much better than everyone else. And when I was young, it was all about skiing. I was skiing with 3 years old. I was 3 years old. With 6 years old, I was like already in the racing group of the club and this and that, and just I was very close to go into the national, I call it selection,
team,
whatever,
national team. Yeah.
But with I had some accidents, like not with the car, but I was into the car. So, and anyway, and the apprenticeship and everything, it was just all too much. And windsurfing was just, I don't know, I was just more interested in windsurfing. I think because I was skiing for forever, I felt like it was forever. But I mean, if you look at me with those two skinny legs and rather, let's say, build a bit bigger of my upper body, I wasn't the perfect skier at all. I just did everything with my mind and with training, and I was at a good level because of my mind and by my training. But talented, even my physique, I didn't have a skiing body. So windsurfing, if you look at windsurfers, they most have skinny legs. I mean, not everybody, but a lot have skinny legs. And it's more up here. Down there, you're more like, let's say, a bit more, not talking about wave sailing, but in slalom and speed, you're more steady with your legs and just do small movements. And up here, you need the strength, you know? So when I was windsurfing, I felt like this is more my sport for how I'm built. But to do really like competition and training and nutrition and, you know, just focus, I can't. There are too many things I'm good at. I remember when I was skiing, there were those summer events, and it was about everything. It was you went bicycle racing, running, doing obstacle courses, and whatever things, you know. And I won them all the time. I was, how you say, polyvalent. Yeah, too many things I like to do. I could never focus just on this one thing, and I was never able to really focus just on windsurfing competition and this is other part, the electromechanic part, that just the technical thing inside me. I'm locked. When I'm thinking about, like now with foils and new boards and everything, there's so and with the sail, there's so much going through my head, and I cannot even. It's hard for me even to concentrate on one thing, because even I think about, let's say, this new board, I already like combine everything with the sail and the foil, all the fin. So I'm not seeing the board just anymore. I'm already like, actually the board is always a bit sticky. So instead of changing the board, I could actually change the sail, because you know what I mean? I combine things. And I always had this. I was never able to really focus just on training, just for this one event or two events or the whole year. And I was never training. But I think my advantage was like I was really basically making my own gear. So whatever I like, obviously I put in production. Even with F2, something I like and what we tested went to production. And I was racing the gear I like, and I was windsurfing just every day, because
even with some strong, quite strong headed testers and riders like Finian or Peter Thommen, rest in peace.
Yeah, okay, but you know, if you go with them, you travel with them, you test with them, you train with them, you get a little bit from his style, and probably he gets something from you. You know what I mean? You end up liking the same. You know, it's not any. These days it's maybe different because team riders change every year. So you have this team rider 1 year, then the next year you have another one. But back in the day, it was like you have this one rider for at least 5 years. Sure.
Only in your company, mate.
So we have to. No. Anyway, so it was. Yeah,
Speaking of team riders, you've had
the older ones always say it was different back in the day, of course, because it's always different, right?
Yeah.
Of course it's different. That's why it's normal. Yeah, with the racing, I could never focus on just competition. I wasn't. Yeah, I couldn't. I remember Fuerteventura. It was my heat, and I went upwind, going to the start line, already having new ideas about what I could change, and that's wrong. You can't think about shaping or something other when you have to focus for this race coming up in a few minutes. I couldn't. Of course, then when the 1 minute before the start, things went away, but a race starts before even that 1 minute, and I was never able to really. That's why actually I was much better in speed, because in speed you have 1 hour time to really improve. So you go back to the beach, change the fin or change the gear or whatever, give it a little trim or give it a little sand, something. You go back out, do your runs again, and constantly you were able to constantly change things. So for me to adapt to conditions was really easy. I take any gear, I go out, come back, change, go out. I do this probably 2 times, and the gear, for what I'm able to do with it, it's set up in let's say 5 minutes. So with speed, being able to go in and out during the race, change things, I was able to adapt so quickly. And this is probably why I was much better in speed than in slalom. In slalom is like this 4 minutes. If you make one mistake in the jibe, and you know, and also I wasn't ever the best jiber at all. You know, like I learned. I think my first proper jibe I did like when I was 18 years old, and out of 10 I pulled 1. And then I was 24 years old. It was all course racing, and you don't really jibe so much. And there's all this big gear. So I wasn't really the jiber. So slalom racing, I was fast. Definitely fast. I'm still fast today, but when it came to jibing and tactics, I was never really my thing. As I said, I wasn't really training at all. I was just shaping and testing and shaping and testing. I just had my good gear all the time.
Yeah. You touched on team riders. Let's dive into that a little bit. Out of probably now 16 years or 17 years that you've been doing the job, somehow involved one way or the other, who was the team rider or the team riders that you enjoyed working with the most?
You can't say. I mean, what I like is actually, if I have a new team rider, I can actually say I can make the best gear for everyone. I struggle most with deciding on a production board, which has to please a lot of people. So, but to make a custom board or trim a whole gear for someone specific would be much, much easier. So if I have a team rider and I just give him something and he goes sailing and I watch him and comes back, gives some feedback, it takes me 1-2 boards max to make the real good board.
But don't you think a SIG board is a SIG board? I mean, yeah, surely guys differ a little bit, but
the best example was always John Sky when he was, you know, they all in Maui and they swapped gear sometimes, and he was like, Cowley, he has such a style and nobody could really ride Cowley's boards. And same with Campello. Campello had boards, and then John Sky told me like, man, I tried Campello's board. There was no way I could sell that thing. So in waves, I think it's very, very.
Yeah, but then in slalom?
In slalom,
a good board, eh?
I mean, if it's hard to say, because I'm mixed a little bit from what was back in the day and what's today. I think today all the riders are more similar like was back in the day. Back in the day, some guys were using seat harness, some guys were using waist harness, and that's already a huge difference on your whole trim. Today, is there anyone using seat harness?
No.
Except one who is still, let's say, an older guy.
No, he doesn't use anymore.
Like, also not it. I think sometimes he's clicking it in or something. I don't know. Anyway, but is there anyone else? Nobody. It's just simply the style has changed so much, and you know, the thing is also today you have no choice. You get your board. This is your cell. This is production gear, and you get used to it. But if you would have the chance to really be on custom boards and custom sails, the gear will be so much different again. But you don't have the chance. You don't have the opportunity, the possibility to do that. So no, the gear will change. I believe.
Yeah. So let's do a little psychological, not test, but a little game. You tell me how it was working with me, and I tell you how it was working with you. We share, like in an AA meeting.
So who starts?
You go.
Okay. You're definitely a guy who pushes, and you do not have any limit to push anyone. Let's say you even push it to the root side because it's just you and it's you. There's no good or bad, but if you're a shaper and you did something like for 20 years and there's this guy coming up and trying to tell you what to do, and you're like, come on, like, probably the same like when Peter Thommen saw me, you're like, who the fuck is this guy, But you proved in competition that you young and you the next generation to do something probably in another direction. But it's so hard, especially for me. Look, if you're just a shaper and you work with a rider, it's so difficult to trying to understand what is he trying to say? What does he want? I'm windsurfing myself. I'm competing myself. So for me to speak to a rider, it's much easier, let's say. So when the rider comes and say, oh, the board doesn't jive nice, we need more V. And I know as a shaper, I already have a lot of V. So for sure it's not the V, because if I will put more, I know the consequences, what will happen. So it's not the V. Probably I can make a smaller tail or more tucket or whatever. So this was you a little bit, Dörner, coming to me, trying to tell me what I have to change on the shape to improve exactly this, what we all wanted to improve. What you said to improve was correct. For example, you say, in the initiation of the jibe, it does this, and we have to change that to make it better. You were right when what you felt, but you were probably wrong of what to do to make it better. You know what I mean? But you don't have the shaper experience, and you don't know what I have tested in the past for 1,000 times to have my knowledge to understand probably better to what it really needs. So anyway, but you keep insisting, nah, it's this one, nah, it's this. And I'm like, oh, Maciek, it's not that. It's not this one, because I have all the other background. But you keep on pushing and pushing and pushing until you get what you want, because it's normal. Everybody wants to learn by himself. I'm the same. Do you think I was listening to my father? My father could write a book and say, Patrik, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Otherwise you get in trouble here and there and everywhere. I still have to learn by myself. I still did it. And we all learned doing. So it's a normal process of young generation, older generation. So what you do is perfect. You know why? Only people like you will learn and make this experience. If you just listen to others, you never really know if it's right or wrong. Could be wrong. Could be wrong than what I said. So if you test it yourself and you get exactly what you wanted for, and you test, then only then you are 100% certain. And you're a guy, you're not going off your way if you have something in your head, which is kind of good if you want to do your own thing. But to work together with someone can be a real pain.
That's how I remember it. But let's start from the beginning. And I think, first of all, I think I learned you had no problem to share the basic physics of how these things were working, So the base of what I even have now, and I work in R&D pretty much ever since, a little bit to more or less extent, whatever, the base I got from you, because you put it down like you made thinking about boards easy, you know? So then I think that just because you told me, I thought I knew, you know, before actually learning on the, you know, before going through all the prototypes, you know, before going through failures and whatever, you know. So I think this is maybe how it came. And then, yeah, for sure, if I had an idea, I would push. But I think mostly what I would push is like, hey, the 115 needs more speed, straight line. Hey, the 115 needs more speed. We wake up, we have breakfast. Hey, Patrik, the 115 needs more speed. We have lunch. Hey, the 115 needs more speed, you know? And I think that was sometimes maybe a little hard for you to take, because I think any designer takes it quite personally because it's your baby, right? And I didn't have the experience yet not to tell you that something is shit. Like if you made a board that was crap, I didn't tell you, hey,
Did I ever? Crap?
Not crap, but like, let's say that it wasn't better than the previous prototype. And instead of telling you, look, this is good about the board, but it could do better in that, and it's actually not better maybe than the other prototype, I would say, hey, that board is shit, let's get rid of it, you know? And I think that really hurt, you know?
You should have worked with Peter Thommen. This was the only thing he wanted to know. He was like, Patrik, we are not talking in millimeters. The board is good or bad. And I was like, okay. So this is how I was testing for Peter. I said, good, bad, good, bad. That's it.
Yeah. But I remember some really good stories. Like, I don't know if you remember the time we were in Lake Garda and we would test like medium boards in the morning with the north wind, and then big boards like the 81 wide in the afternoon. And then after we were done testing, you would go to Carl's place, the shaper you mentioned, and modify the boards. And I would come, I don't know, I would bring dinner there, whatever, watch. And when I was tired, I would go to sleep, and you would keep laminating or modifying or whatever until like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, you know? And then I remember one time I went away, I go sleep, and like at 5 or 6 in the morning, the phone rings, and you're like, man, you know, and we were like pressed against the deadline. We had to finish like, I don't know, in a day or whatever, because you had this production deadline for Cobra or whatever it was, you know, or maybe a registration deadline, whatever. And then you're like, man, you're not going to believe this. Come here. And so I drive to Carl's, and you were there. And I think you used those lamps that, you remember?
I know where you're going.
You used lamps that you never used before, that made the lamination faster.
Or the melting.
But somehow you set them wrong, or there was something wrong, or just because you never used them or whatever. And a prototype that we modified like fucking 8 times, and it was actually really good, and it was just the last modification.
I remember that one.
It was in between the racks, melted, like the board was laying just on the racks, and everything that was in between the racks was melted.
I remember that one. It was exactly because to cure the resin faster, you need some heat, and we had an oven, but I think I had something else in the oven. Don't remember anyway. So I was using those heat lamps, and I never used them ever before, but I knew they were there. They were cars, and I just used the heat lamps. But the heat lamp,
Yeah.
Wrong. I remember that.
So my question to you is, when you see some of your riders that came to you quite young, and then you kind of share a lot of the knowledge, like, I don't know, maybe John Sky, myself to probably a lesser extent, because in the end we didn't do all that much together, Danny Bruce, maybe maybe Danny Eberly. Do you sometimes feel like these guys, they have all moved on and they have made their own careers in R&D, to a bigger or lesser extent, with your involvement? Do you sometimes like maybe regret, sharing the knowledge, because right now these guys are kind of your competition, more or less, right?
So no, not at all. As you know me, I just, whenever I have something, I just tell it to everyone, because the thing is, I have so many ideas, and I cannot even take care of all my ideas. So you actually mentioned a good name, John Sky. I remember John Sky, developing with John Sky. Jesus, he was sending me information. Patrik, the tail, 2.5 millimeter difference and stuff. And I was like, John, please, come on, please stop it. It's not, especially in the outline. I understand, of course, if in some places, rocker and concaves and stuff, you feel it, but in the outline, in the width, and he was so persistent, and it has to be I'm the pro kind of, and I have to use, and you have to. Now, as you say, he's really into this whole development, and he's actually my competitor, let's say, yeah? And he's actually designing his sails for RD, and I just recently met him in China in the company where we also make the sails now, and he was so much fun. And we all, we dug out all the old times and talking about it. And he was actually exactly one of the guys that, Patrik, do you remember when I was like this? And he basically told me, Patrik, sorry, but you were right back then, and I understand now, and stuff like this. So, but it's good. If he wouldn't, he would not be there where he is today. Somebody who just accepts whatever you say. What if you accept and agree to somebody who doesn't know? I mean, how do you know that he knows and he doesn't? So if you work with one brand and probably he knows, you listen. Okay, you work for another brand and another developer says something and it's probably completely wrong, but you still believe it. Where do you go? You probably go in the wrong direction. If you persistent and you want what you want and you test it yourself, if it's as you want or not. And only if you really know, then you keep on moving. It's the hard way, it's the tough way, it's the arguing way. But I believe actually everyone who just agrees, they do not keep moving in that direction. Of course, if a team rider is not interested in developing, he doesn't care. He's just the talent and doing not just, but he's the talented competitor and wins being world champion. He doesn't need to know how to shape a board. But there are others, they're also interested in the technical aspect. And for them, if they want to keep going, you have to go the way like you do, like John Sky did, like everybody. And this is why they are there where they are today. And that's good. That's really good.
Yeah. But the one kind of more, less interested in how the product is done and just wants to have good boards, I guess would be Ricardo, right? We need to go there. And that's just my question. Like, my question is,
you want to go Ricardo, there, right?
Yeah, let's go there.
I need a sip of water first. No. Look,
you asked me what Ricardo said on the podcast because you didn't listen yet. And he basically just said that you guys had some arguments and he didn't think that you kept your word. And that's basically all he said. He didn't want to go into detail more.
Let's separate it in. That's the brand and sponsorship, and that's the shaper, because I'm old, because with our brand, I'm doing everything, but let's separate it. So let's talk about the shaper and Ricardo, okay? But let's not talk the brand owner and Ricardo. So shaper and Ricardo, Look, Ricardo is so talented. Sorry. It's like Antoine Albo. You give him a plank, he's winning. You know, Ricardo can put any board make any board look good. Of course, he has his specific style he really wants. And you can't, when I first met him, it's not like when I first met him. I mean, like as a shaper, when we first sit together, and he said, Patrick, I only like quads. I'm like, how do you know? I mean, no, I tested so much, you know, and I never liked any other. I'm like, maybe you will with me. No, that's it. Quads, and that's it. Okay, and let it be quad. This is, by the way, why we started having quad, because of him. He would not a chance to go, not even testing another board if it's not a quad. So if this is stuck in a competitor's mind, let him be, because at the end, if your mindset is wrong, you go out and do the competition, you probably end up doing bad. So if you're happy, if your mind is strong, you go out there and you're already a winner. So this is important. So anyway, I was in Maui, gave him a few my boards. He just did this one bottom turn, flat-faced, came back in, said, no way I'm gonna ride that board. But it's just the style, you know, like that board was Danny Brook's favorite board. So here we are actually with the style, because Danny Brook, coming from Tenerife, more like side on, huge jumps, and let's say more like a little bit the clue first, bottom turning. He likes, let's say, a skateboard to do a lot of turns in those, let's say, rather shitty waves compared to Maui Hukipa. And Ricardo, of course, being on all those nice places, living there and doing those beautiful bottom turns, cutbacks in those best worldwide best waves. And he put so much weight forward onto the rail, the board basically just sunk and dug in, and he just catapulted, and the wave just went straight on his head. And he came in after that one bottom turn and said, no, I'm not riding that board. And I was about to say, yeah, but you know, I was watching you. What if you could also adapt your style a little bit? No way. Okay, no problem. So I was shaping two boards in Maui in a chicken shed, basically, almost. I was a shaper, but it felt like a chicken shed because it was so hot in there. So anyway, I made those two boards because I understood what he wants. Because when I saw him, and there was no way he was changing his style, I knew exactly. I said, okay, let's go for your style. Let's do this. And that was good. But these were just the sideshow boards. But what was probably more interesting to develop were the side onshore boards, because most competitions, Tenerife, Gran Canaria, and all this, the boards are made in Maui. He would never even take to those places. So I made those boards. Imagine, I mean, you, Maciek, you will understand. I made 16 prototypes. For example, I was using 2 times the same rocker line, but one had an outline, let's say, from what he likes, and one has an outline from, let's say, our production board. But big difference. I'm talking like 2 centimeters difference in the tail, just in outline. Everything else, rails, bottom shape, rocker line, identical, just the outline.
You were doing a Peter Thommen. After you decided not to do a Peter Thommen, you were doing a Peter Thommen.
And another set of board had the 2 same outlines, but different rocker lines. But Maciek, not like big time different, like completely different. And then another 2 boards, let's say, had the same outline, same rocker line, but different bottom shape. I'm talking like from single concave to V and double concave and stuff. Mine, completely different. I gave him all those boards. And then I I remember when we first talked, and he's like, all the boards are good. I'm like, what? I mean, okay, all the boards are good, but which one do you prefer? Nah, they're all sick. I'm like, what? How is it even possible? I mean, the boards are so completely different. But you know what? For a competitor, that's the best way you can think. You never go into a competition and you think like you have the wrong gear. You're not. His mindset is not. He would never blame a board or a fin or a sail if he's not doing good, and that's actually really, really good. But for me as a shaper, trying to get feedback to make something like a Ricardo Campello edition, it was so hard. It was so hard. So at the end, I just told him, okay, look, the boards you don't like, give them back to me. So I have some other guys who can maybe feel a bit more. And I got those boards back, but they were so, it's not like you expect he sends back all the boards which probably had the same rocker line, and he kept the other boards with this rocker line. You know what I mean? So as a shaper, you understand, he probably doesn't like that rocker line. So he's going into one direction, even he doesn't know. And with the outline as well. No way. It was one board from this and one board from that, and I'll go this back and like, oh shit. So out of this, I have to make now a production board. And it is just not possible. But as I said, is this now a good way or is it a bad way? Depends. If you're the competitor, that's the good way, because the equipment is important, but you have good gear, you're happy. But it's not just about the good gear. With Steve Allen, for example, it's completely different. If it is not exactly, even if that top batten is not with the correct tension, he basically comes in and is like, I can't sell. You know what I mean? So they're completely two opposites. But as a competitor, Steve Allen, if he's not, his mindset is if the gear is not exactly as he needs it to be, he struggles to really keep going. But as a developer, Steve knows exactly what he wants. So with Steve to develop something, we go out, one run, come back, we talk, things are done. I know what to do, that's it. So depends on who you are, what you want. It can be either good or bad. So
okay, and now Ricardo versus the brand owner, brand manager.
Ricardo versus the brand owner. Look, very simple. When he was with JP, Martin Brandner was his manager. He's everything, He organized everything. He took care of everything. And Ricardo had just this one thing in his head, windsurfing. And that was good. He was a kid. A kid doesn't have to take care of money and contracts and everything. But there's a certain age you really should start taking care of your own business. You cannot just always ask someone, can you go through my contract if everything is fine? Or, you have to be on your own. And he just can't. He's just that windsurfer, just wants to go windsurfing. And for him, if he would have a manager and a coach, he would be world champion probably every year. He just has this talent. It's unbelievable. It's like so much talent. But talent in a competition is just not enough. You need more. You need this mindset. You need you cannot be emotional. Look at Roger Federer. In the game, there is no smile, there is no anger. It's nothing. It's just like a robot. And after the game, he's always crying. He lets it all out. It's not about he's sad or happy, because you can cry because you're sad. You can cry because you're happy. So it's just this whole emotion, he lets it out. But during his event, nothing. And for the opponent, for the other, it's so difficult to, even if he's points behind, there's no way. It doesn't mean anything. He can still win. But the others, they completely lose it.
But I
Like
think
if you come,
this is a really big misconception because everybody's so different. Even if you look inside windsurfing, Bjorn the Terminator is totally different than Antoine or even Matteo, you know, who's, you have to admit, is okay, didn't win as much as Bjorn did or whatever, but is an amazing competitor, but is way more emotional than Bjorn,
but
right?
we're not talking about that one-off champion. We're talking about that long-term champion coming every year and still be there and still be there and again and again and again. Do you think really that Björn and Antoine are so different? Björn never lost it in his life. I've never seen, I mean, I've seen other riders trashing things, destroying things just because of one heat. Björn, never. Even if he's dead last, still keeps going. He never misses one race. He's just dead. And Antoine, same thing. He never misses one race. And Antoine, have you ever seen Antoine fully angry? No way.
Yes.
Have you ever seen him
Yeah,
fully
sure.
happy?
Of course.
Rarely, rarely. Maybe this is his French temper a little bit, but anyway, but like tiny, tiny little. In comparison to how many competitions he's done, in percentage, how many times he probably lost it, it's nothing. And have you ever seen him super happy, super stoked? Never. Yeah, Matteo. When I've seen Matteo racing, he's not that, you know, it's just this guy. He has this other, like you, me too. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm talking bad or good about somebody. It's just fact. I'm losing it completely. I was there on the beach having my boom and hitting the sand. I lost it completely.
Maybe that's why you maybe that's why you love Alex Cousin so much.
Alex.
Alex is the, like, nobody, it's so funny. Like, I would never, I know the guy since we raced since we are 13 against each other. He's a bit older than me. He's like three something, 4 maybe years older. But I raced with him, with Pierre, since we are super young. And I would never say this about him. But recently they told me, like, in Denmark, he got so pissed that he was shoving a mast through his air inside board. Like, you know, like €3,500 board or whatever. And just,
But you see, and by the way, I said to Alex, I remember when I was sailing with Alex in actually at his home, and there was just this whatever buoy out there, and he said, "Okay, let's take this buoy just to do a few jibes." First jibe, it's just a mind thing. I knew just by heart I will be first around that jibe. We just came. He was that little bit in front of me. And then he went into the jibe and I just screamed. And I just went inside. He completely lost it. He crashed. And I went around the jibe and said, "Alex, it's all up there. I was doing nothing. I was just screaming." And you were like, "Oh," and you just crashed. You can't do this. You need to be. And then the second jibe, because he knew I will do something, probably not scream this time, but trying some other trick. And he was aware of things like this. And then it was okay. But you see, this is again, is like a coach telling you things. But in windsurfing, sorry, but the riders should really work much more with mental, with or even somebody who just takes away all the stress of contracts, because this is also something really stressful. I mean, contracts, sorry, but all contracts these days are bad in comparison how it was before. But why are contracts bad? Okay, you're the world champion, but you have to look at, where are you world champion? How much money is in that sport? If you're world champion in how you say, when you step in the bag and you jump, how you call it?
Yeah, back jumping, whatever. Yeah,
Back jumping. I mean, they're world champions. So what? You think they're sponsored?
yeah.
But he's
I
still a world
loved
champion.
you.
In his discipline, he's the best in the world. So it depends. You cannot request something which is not even possible as a contract.
It's a pretty shitty comparison for a pretty good cause, let's say, because you're right, obviously, that the contract negotiations are super stressful. And with you, I have to say, especially because it reaches a point where it's like kind of who has a bigger dick contest, who has bigger balls, because it's like you're also the shaper, you're next rider, you know what I mean, you're so many roles that you can kind of always, like, you always have an answer. I just remembered now, I haven't even thinking up to this interview, I didn't think about it, but now that I think about our contract negotiations, it was Jesus Christ, man.
Of course. I mean, as you say, I was a nobody. I became a shaper. I was a racer. I had to deal contracts. I'm an owner. So you can't really trick me. If you just deal with the brand manager, probably he was working in the steel industry before. Now he's a brand manager of a windsurfing brand. I don't know. Could be in some big companies. And well,
yeah, but I don't think anybody wants to trick you. Any rider wants to trick you. He just sincerely believes that he deserves it, and if he gets it elsewhere, means that, sorry, but his market value is that, and if
okay,
you want
so why do they still end up with us? Why
some do, some don't, right? Like, you've had a multiple riders that came and left for whatever reasons, but many times it comes down to money, doesn't it?
I think it comes down a bit on everything, because some, they look, it is very tough. And also, I don't want to call any names and stuff, obviously. And but if somebody asks for sponsorship, is it just the money, or you also really want the gear to really do better once in your life? So a lot of riders, they are split between, I actually want the money from this company, but I want the gear from that company. And sorry, but this is the game. That company probably knows that they have the better gear than that company. And you play what you play with. It's not like we don't want to. And by the way, it's not just me, it's Karen Jaggi, with 29 world champion titles. It's not that she's just a nobody. And dealing contracts, she dealt so many contracts. I have to deal so many contracts. I know very well the value of all those riders back in the day, all those whoever big names, and the contracts we make today. It's not like that they completely out of the blue, but also, for example, in freestyle, for 2 events per year, you cannot just, you also have to look how many boards do you sell in this segment, freestyle. So how much can we really offer? Of course, if the rider wants our board because he thinks like, well, that's the best freestyle board because it's the shortest, the widest, I don't know what. But the contract, the money is not good enough. Okay, he has to take a decision. What's more worth? To get the money and to bet in competition, so you don't make prize money and whatever, or to get the best board and no money at all, or maybe a company who just has this average. So this is business. If a team rider looks for a sponsor, that's his business. That's a job. This is what most riders are lacking in because they just windsurfing and this is what they do really good. But in when it comes to contracts, and by the way, why is it always the windsurfing brand contract? Why? Tell me really how many riders you know who have any other contract from any other company. as it would be normal in other sports. Not
More,
many.
more and
because-
more for sure, because the less we can rely on in the industry, the more we have to do that. But I tell you, the industry is the one thing that is constant, and in an outside of industry sponsor, enough there is that, I don't know, the marketing manager changes and he doesn't like action sports anymore. He likes horseback riding or polo or whatever, and he'll pull all the money from, I had an energy drink sponsor, and that energy drink, just Coca-Cola, who owned that energy drink, bought another energy drink who had all these athletes. So they moved the energy drink that was sponsoring me into music. So there was just no more money for sports there, And so these kind of things, random things that you cannot control. With the industry is a bit more, because the industry also needs riders, right? You need a certain amount of riders. And I think in many ways, it would also help your brand to have, like you say, like long-term kind of relationships and guys that you build the brand with, right? And I don't know, we touched on Ricardo, and obviously you didn't think that amount of talent, that crazy talent, was enough by itself.
But again, I think with Ricardo, it was not so much the value of the contract. With Ricardo, it was all the side things, what's within the contract. So, for example, I remember when I started, and Karen as well, you have to show to the brand who you are, and then you ask for a contract. But you yourself, you have to promote yourself. You have to look around for maybe get some TV minutes or some interviews in the magazines, whatever. You promote yourself. These days, it's completely different. Kind of, by the way, we had this case, not Ricardo, with another rider. This guy basically came and said, if you give me 15 grand and whatever equipment isn't this, I can be world champion. I'm like, what? Sorry, you are world champion. You come to me and say, look, I'm a world champion. What do you give me? Or I'm top 15. What do you give me? It's not like you give me that and I will be. Never happened. It's not like this. You don't go to look for a job and say, if you give me 10 grand, I can learn that job. You're like, excuse me, there's the door. It doesn't work like this. You go into the job interview and say, look, this is me. This is what I can do. How much you pay me? This is like, and things change so much these days.
But where I don't agree with you, I mean, riders, they do have to take care of themselves. They have all this social media. They have YouTube channels. They have all this stuff. There is just no magazines left. Like, there is probably like,
Agree.
I don't know, 8 big windsurfing magazines in the whole world, entire world, and that's it. And the rest of it, yeah, like you need to take care of your own. And back in the day, like I interviewed Anders, and he said like Tiga used to fucking put him on the magazines, just because he was on the Tiga team. He didn't have to do jack shit, So, but anyway, look, I think we're getting a little bit maybe too deep here, into these kind of discussions.
It is definitely not easy, especially not if you have two people in the company who went through all this since 20 years or more each. So with Karen and me, with the rider dealing contracts, it is hard, but because we know what it was and what's, let's say, fair in money, gear, support, and whatever other things.
Yeah, but like Craig Gertenbach went through that. Finian Maynard went through that. John Sky went through that. They're all people working in the industry and somewhat deciding certain contracts, and I don't think that's different for you. It's just the fact that I think yeah, you just have a little bit of a more, maybe it's your army background as well, which I didn't mention, but you know,
But by the way, it's not so much me, with the money. It's the other boss. Me, if it would up to me, oh man, I would just give it out. But women are always the ones tightening up. So look, it's not easy with contracts. I tell you, it's not easy. It's never easy. But yeah, it is as it is.
let's talk about the brand a little bit. Patrik is 10 years now, right? The Patrik brand, let's say, it's 10 years old. Are you happy with where it is? Are you satisfied? Did you envision this when you started? And maybe actually you owe us maybe a little bit of an explanation how it started, because I know when F2 got sold, what happened and why you decided to start your own brand rather than continue with F2.
By the way, it's much harder to make contract if it's your own brand or if you just work for a brand. For Greg Ettenbach to make a contract, well, it's not his company, isn't it? It's our money, our private money. We earn, we make contracts. So it's always a bit harder to really give that final signature for whatever. Anyway, so the company, as you just said, F2 got sold. The new owner had other ideas, and well, not going too much in those details. And then we decided to make our own brand because, especially, I was there to decide, what do I do? Do I take the risk, make the own brand, or do I just do another job and just enjoy windsurfing so much more? Because if you have your own brand, I by the way, I promised myself once, a long time ago, I will never have my own brand. Because I remember when Peter Thommen started his own brand, and I followed, and I saw how really hard it is. It's really tough if you do your own brand. There are so many, customers, riders, contracts, productions, and gear and performance, and it's just it's too much. Normally it doesn't work like this. Normally you have a shaper, you have the brand manager, you have the marketing manager, you have this and this and that. But when you start with the brand, you don't. You just you and day and night working. So I didn't want to do this, but so many friends, people just pushed me. I said, Patrik, you have to do it. You have to do it. You have the best chance, and so on and so on. And we had a few importers who were disappointed in F2 and said, Patrik, if you do your own brand, I immediately gonna support you. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So we did. And in the first year, it just went up like this. I didn't expect it. But as I said, there were so many disappointed importers from F2. At the end, they were like, well, I'll take Patrik. And it went up. The first 2 years, it went like, and then the third year, a little bit more. And then, let's say, from there on, it was very steady, because it was also, I had to take a decision with Karen. How big do we want to be? Do we want to go like big, then you have employers and all this, but you also have risk and you have responsibility, And if it's just her and me, we see our limit. If it's too much, then we do a little bit less, and we will just find where we want to be, and it's just okay for us to live. And then this is where we were in the last, let's say, from 2010 till 2017. It was just where we want to be. We competed, we developed, we had riders, and it was really, really good. Let's say in 2018, we felt like it's getting tough. It's getting, especially because a lot of importers who did our brand, they pulled out because, of course, other brands are stronger. And then they came in, and if you just have boards, it's normal. I mean, if I would be an importer and I have this one company, let's say Boards and More, you have everything. Boards, sails, accessories, neoprene, kite, even snowboard, whatever you want of this, you have one contact and you can deal. Say, look, I have a shop. Well, I'm an importer. I take everything of your company. What's the deal? If you have this one brand, there's just boards. You can't deal much because, okay, it's just boards. And then you have another brand that's just sales. And you have another brand. You always have to deal with so many people, so many business. And it's more complicated. And windsurfing probably still is on the way down. I hope it's going to change. As I said, windsurfing in general, it's for all the brands, even the productions, they're all affected and this is not because of Corona. This is just because of whatever. Windsurfing is not so interesting anymore for the mainstream. And so 2018, we felt like it's not there anymore where we want it to be. And we thought about it, why is that, and so on and so on. We don't have good products. What should we change? Should we put colors in the boards, and so on and so on? But at the end, it's very simple. Look at Germany. Germany, when I started, there were still 20 shops. And there were like, at least 8 to 10 good shops you could choose of, Every shop has, of course, one or even two or more big brands. But they also have, let's say, a side brand where they promote and, this is the shop I can find whatever, Patrik boards, let's say, or this is the shop where I can find 0.7 sales and so on. But hey, now, how many shops there in Germany? Sorry. I mean, physically shops you can walk in, 5. And every shop has just simply every brand inside the shop. You walk in, there's everything in it. There's Castro, Taboo, Severn, Starboard, JP, Neil, all the big brands, all in it. Plus, all the little brands as well. Everything. How can you as a shop even support a customer? This customer comes in and it's not like you say, oh, look, I'm a specialist I have this brand and the advantage of this brand towards other brands is blah, blah, blah. So the customer believes you. Now you walk into a shop and there's everything there. So what do you buy? Of course, the shop owner has to sell his risk. There are brands, they go into the shop, they say, oh, come, can I put 5 boards into your shop? If you sell them, you give me the money. If not, it's okay. Shop says, of course, put it there. But no way he's ever going to push and sell that board, except somebody walks in and was like, I want that board, that's it. There's always this turnaround. There's, yeah, that board is good, but because he had to pay those boards and it's his risk. And he will sell that board. So the customer will walk out with another board as he initially probably wanted to buy. So anyway, and for us, as a just board brand, there's no way. And I understand. It's not that I'm angry, upset with shops and stuff, but it's normal. So for us, it was 2 years ago. It was the decision also to get, let's say, a marketing guy with Tine Slave. We have a bit everything. He's marketing, but also sales, also in testing. Of course, he's a good rider, so it's also good for me to test some stuff. And so this is what we did, because my vision was I want, because it's a challenge for me, a complete brand with everything. Sails, mast, booms, fins, boards, everything. And hopefully also wetsuits, harnesses. So this is our target. But how? If you run brand completely and you're the shaper and you take finance, you take everything, you can't. There's no way you can take care of more things. So we had to give away a few things. So marketing, sales, it's Tine with Karen, and I have more time to concentrate on developing other things. So we also got another guy, because the product, it's not like you can develop on your own just a whole range of everything, you know, it's just simply not possible. So we're in cooperation with another guy. His name is Fabio Cannella from Italy, and he's actually a 3D designer. He did his he finished his uni in the automobile industry, and we were in contract years before. He's also competing a little bit, and he joined the Swiss competitions, and I met him, and we had this idea of designing this perfect Formula fin, but by then the fin was finished. Formula was finished too, so there was no more need anyway. And then he finished his uni, and then called me up and said, Patrik, I'm finished my uni, should we do something together a bit more? I'm like, you're right in time. So yes, with him designing all the 3D things like the fins, he's also whatever is on the computer, on the laptop with programs and 3D and whatever, he's doing. So basically, I have my ideas, I measure, I check everything what I want, speak to him, and he puts it down. And then I'll check it, we produce it, test it, and keep on going. So this is why we also started with sales and fins and everything. So 2 years ago, we felt really like we need to do something. We need to do something to be competitive in the shop again.
But wasn't it easier to just look like Starboard didn't start Severn? They bought in, you know, like Neil Pride didn't start JP. They bought it when it was kind of running already. Gastra didn't start Taboo. You know, they cooperate, and there is quite a few sail brands out there on the market that are alone, you know, and I guess you tried with Sailloft Hamburg, and I don't know, it just seems like a lot for a small company. I know how you guys run, and I know how you are, and how much time you want to spend on developing a product. I mean, it seems a lot, you know, boards, full range of boards, full range of sails. Are you not scared that the product will suffer, you know, because now you're putting all your energy into sales. Now you're putting a lot of energy into sales or fins or whatever, while your best selling product might suffer, you know, your medium slalom board or whatever your best selling product is, you know.
So no, look, it's not just Sailloft. We tried to, because we already said the name, so it's out. So it's not just that brand we tried to cooperate. It was already years before. When we started Patrik, of course, it was from the very beginning. I always thought like, I want to also cooperate with the sail brand. And as you said, there are many. There's 0.7, Challenger, Loft Sails, Sail Loft, and there are many brands out. Simmer, KA. Actually, Simmer, they make boards now too. But anyway, yes, it would have been the possibility, absolutely, to do that. And I was on it. Trust me, I was on it. But
then you had to negotiate a contract.
No. It's actually. By the way, it was when we started with this company in Ukraine making the hollow boards. We also have a partnership, you know, in this segment, hollow boards, and there was some money involved, and we were like, come on, we have now the chance to really make a big thing out of it. And my partners, they were also, Patrik, okay, sail brand, where could we look at? And so, and these guys are like top of the shelf business guys, you know. They were like, they're windsurfers as well. They were like all keen, you know, and they have this big factory and this they have all the possibility, they have all the power. And I was fully motivated and went closer, digging into this, okay, which brand and so on. And you know, why are little brands, and why do little brands stay little for so long? I mean, back in the day, JP came out of F2, Of course it went big. F2 made JP. It's Jason Polakov was riding F2, and then they were looking for some whatever marketing, and then let's make a Jason Polakov edition, and out of that, JP was F2. It was let's say a special edition. Then it came bigger, and then it grew, and then it got sold. Of course, there's JP, and but there's so many riders, Finian, Arnon, everybody who this, you also be tired of dealing with these companies. And then you think like, you know what? I do my own brand.
Knowing you, you're just sure you can do it better, correct?
And no, but I'm saying like, but then you suddenly realize, actually, it's not so easy here. Oh shit, I didn't thought about this. And then I'm sure everybody, I know everybody who starts his own brand, even when it's little, I think they suddenly face things and they think back, actually, in that meeting, now I understand why he was doing this and why is that, because you will understand. But if you don't do it, you will never understand. So all those little brands, they suddenly understand what does actually mean to really have an own brand. So to just grow, it's not that easy. And also, do you want to grow? Because it's just more responsibilities, it's just less windsurfing time as well, And then I didn't want it with Karen. And even now, I don't want to be as big as Boards and More. No way, because there's also a lot of risk. During those Corona, I was actually happy having a little brand and saying like, lucky we don't have running costs, If you're a big brand, oh Jesus, you sweat, I go, gee, how do we get through those 4 months? Or you don't even know how many months. And it's much, much harder. And as a little brand, you have no risk. You just, you just save money. So, but as a little brand, even as a little brand, if you're too little, it's also not working because you have to pay the PWA fee. You have to make at least 20 boards per size for the registration, and this from every size, and then you have free ride and everything. Suddenly you have 44 boards in the range, and 20 boards doesn't sound much, but 44 times 20 is already 880. And of course, from some boards, you need much more than 20, and then you suddenly at 1,500 and 2,000 boards, and you're like, I cannot even manage all the costs, making molds and this, doing development and everything, and it doesn't work. So where is a little brand and where is the big brand? But there's also this jump. If you want to go into this big brand and be powerful, and even you have a crappy board, you just get the best team rider who will still win on it. So whatever, doesn't matter. To do that jump, you need help. You need at least 5 employees, working marketing manager, everything. And then again, you have to fix costs and you have to pay. Jesus. And if they're sick, they cannot at work, you still have to pay them. So there's this big jump. And so where do you get the money from? Anyway, so with this joint venture with the Sail brand, it's exactly there. They are, let's say, not super little brands, but those big little brands. You wish like, if I could join with him, that would be good. But then it starts. Who is paying for what? How do we manage? Who will develop? And what's the income? What's this? How do we share? How do we put it together? What's the license? What's this? What this? Should we change the brand name to whatever? There are so many things, and it's just not easy. All those big companies, the owner you never see. They're just the employees, and they just steal the brand. But they are not the owners, so it's much easier. But if you're the owner and this is your brand, to join with another one who maybe has some other ideas, it's just so hard, and it never happened. But not from my side, obviously also from their side, and this is why they also, let's say, still alone, or sometimes join a little bit with this brand, and then it's not this anymore, it's another brand. It's like a little bit of turnus. Yeah. And there I got the ultimatum from from Tina, and Tina said, Patrik, we need it now. And I was like, I'm trying. And we had meetings and everything. And even he said, it's not easy. And then Fabio was like, why do we don't make our own cells? And I'm like, well, I know what I want when I'm on the water, but to get there, I don't even, I never did it. So, and he's like, yeah, but I can. And I said, okay, but where do we start with the base? And then I was like, let's just try one wave cell and just try one slalom cell. So I tried to find a company who was keen just to make a cell. Obviously, not just making me a cell with a stitching machine, because with the factory. So I went to China, checked a few factories up and there, contacts, and it was actually really funny because suddenly you feel like, I know these guys. Yeah, you were the guy I was emailing 5 years ago. I'm like, yeah, you that guy. Yeah, okay. And it's so funny. It's funny. It's almost like a family, like a big family. Anyway, and then I was like, look, I want to try. And we did. I had all those trashed wave cells in my garage from, I don't even know, so many different brands. And I was like, and Fabio was here in Australia for 3 months with our main goal, designing and developing all the fins, just in G10, because this is the quickest. Later on, we also, of course, planned to make carbon fins and everything, but we started with G10. Anyway, he was here, and then we suddenly started unpick broken cells and try to analyze, look, why is that, and so on and so on. And we put everything in the program, sent the file, got the cell back, and it was already, actually that wasn't too hard. Just the wave cell, of course, no cambers, no sleeve, wide sleeve and stuff. And then I was like, okay, now slalom cell. And I was like, yeah, okay. And then I was like, where do I start, And I was in this factory, and the guy's like, Patrik, you have to buy a basic file from a brand, like some old files, 3, 4, 5-year-old, whatever files from any brand. Pay them some money and it's okay, they're happy and it's all good, you have a start. But I couldn't think of any brand I can buy a file of, I was like, okay, should I call Gastra and Knut, do you have some old files for me to sell? Or maybe Ben Severn. Herring, Ben is your ex-boyfriend, right? Can you not just call him up, give us some old files? I could not, and it's just not
Ben
me.
Severn, Ben Severn, that is, of course.
Yeah, Ben Severn. Anyway. So I was like, I cannot. My heart can't. I'm like, and I was in this factory, and when I arrived, there was the owner said, Patrik, I have a surprise for you. A guy you know. And I was thinking, of course, of the cell brand, who is producing there and who can be there, And in the end, it was John Sky sitting there in the restaurant. And I was like, John. And John as well, Patrik, trust me, you have to get some files from, so that you need to have a base. Otherwise, you go completely crazy and you will never be able, and it's too hard and whatever. But already having everyone saying to me, this is not possible, just, I don't know, made me not angry, but it just challenged me again. Exactly. Now we're back to the challenge. Challenged me again. I'm like, basically, I will. And then started to unpick slalom cells from a few different brands and just thinking about, okay, why, how, and so on and so on and so on. And then the hardest part was also, by the way, to understand, not to understand the program. To understand the program, for Fabio, it was a piece of cake. But to transfer everything in production, like all the details, that the cell really comes out as you want, because designing the cell on the program, mostly you just see numbers. It's not like you design a board and you can change it in 3D. You look at the shape, you zoom in, zoom out.
It's
They're
much
more
harder
like,
to understand, isn't it? What's going to come out.
much harder. If you never did it, you don't see the sail, you just see numbers. Of course, if you now already putting numbers in, we already see, like in a visual that what can come out, what will come out, or what could come out. But at the beginning, it was just numbers. I was like, you know what? Just send the fucking file. We'll see what's coming out. And that first sail came, and again, I was like, it's actually better than I thought, to be honest. And then it started. And then we found out this problem. I'm like, oh shit, we forgot about that. And then the next thing, I was like, oh, no way. And then we changed materials, and then the sail came out completely different. The same sail. I was like, oh, Jesus, no. And then it really started. So as the wave sail was actually quite quick, the slalom sail was just, and the first one was the most surprise, but then in detail and changing, because you know, you don't want just to copy something, but it was already a challenge to see, can we copy something? But then from there, when you have this base to do your own thing, I'm not happy about this material. Oh, let's change the love curve. Let's do this. No, I'm not happy with it. I want more this, I want more that. And this is where it started. This is where it completely
And
went.
then you do the classic thing where you change 5 things on one prototype and you fucking totally lose the sense of where it's going, right?
Well, this is, no, first we just try to have the base of every cell. But obviously I don't want to do, you know, you cannot just upsize or something. Even with the board, you cannot just copy, paste, bigger, longer, whatever, because if the cell is 6 meter high or 5 meter high, you are still 180 something, you know, so where the boom height is still similar. So it's much, much harder. So to create that first base of every cell size from 5 to 9.5, that was a real pain. Once we have that base, I was like, okay, now we have it, the base finally. Now let's really, and I want to know. I did the same, by the way, when I had the chance to work for F2 and be the tester. I invested so much money in just, they were not prototypes, they were not custom boards, they were just boards I built, tested this 1 hour and sold it. So basically, V. What is the V? It's not about is it fast, does it go upwind, whatever, but what is it really doing in the water? What if I give a little bit of V? What is flat? And what if I give a lot of V? What does it really do? Tail outlines, scoop rock lines, just, I made those real rough boards to understand the basics, and then I have all the ingredients to mix as I want. So with the sail, it's the same. I made, just an example, cambers. What cambers do you take? Okay, do I take long cambers, short cambers, this camber, the other camber? There's so many cambers out there. And I'm like, okay. I made one sail with all 4 cambers, small ones. I made one sail with all 4 cambers, big ones. I made one sail with the 2 middle ones, big, and the top and the bottom, small. I made another sail with the 2 middle, and then we found out there's another camber which is a half between, and we made like 6 sails, identical sails, everything just with different cambers.
You know exactly that it depends on the shaping, because if you don't have much shaping up front, then the small cam is enough to rotate, and the small cam is always going to be better for the shaping because there is more of a curve but if you have a lot of shaping, then the big cam has way more leverage on the rotation, so it will rotate better than the small cam if you have a lot of shaping. So again, it depends. It's all relative, isn't it? So then, yeah, you can do that. You can have the base, but you know how it is.
Exactly. Let's not go too much in detail about whatever, but the thing is, for what we want and for our experience, and as I said, as a basic, I know what you say with deep and the flat and whatever and cambers, depending on the cell, but at the end, you have this kind of cell, it's working. and you cannot have a pitch flat sail. You know this. You cannot have this bomba sail. So doing all these competitions every year and being with different brands, developing, testing, you have an idea of how it should look like. So once you have this, what it should look like for our design of how it should look like, which camber is the best? And of course, having then those 6 cells with just different cam, even the guys in production say like, Patrik, you're crazy. And I was like, well, I need to know. But then I did the same with the love curve. It's just the same cell, just different love curve. The same cell, different this. The same cell, different that. And the guys in production were like, Patrik, you're crazy. And John Sky was a bit upset. He said, wow, you have so much budget. You can make all those tests. I'm like, I have budget from who? From my own money. It's not, I have so much budget.
Yeah.
But, but I was never worried because, there's so many people out there, they want to sell, you just sell the prototypes and whatever. So I was not like, I'm thinking like I'm losing money investing in so many prototypes. But it was interesting to see all those changes also with materials.
It's something new, right? It's something like you've done this on boards, you've done this 20 years ago, and you have that database, And
exactly. And I couldn't get this database from anyone. As I said, I cannot just call up. I mean, we could hire a sail designer, but to be honest, is there a sail designer you can actually hire right now? Every sail designer is with a sail brand. So there's not just, if you want to make your own brand, to find a sail designer I think it's not so easy. And of course you want a good one, right? And then you need the budget to really pay him. So for me, it was a good challenge. We started in December 2018. And well, here we are with Corona, trying to get those cells out. And it's just another nightmare. Oh, Jesus Christ.
We'll not get into that. We touched on all the gear developments and how, now you're into sales but you've been into boards and for years and years, and foils and fins and carbon and composite and plastic and air inside and whatever. What do you think is the next big breakthrough in windsurfing equipment?
Foiling, there's no question. I mean, I really, for the first time in my life, in my windsurfing career, it always went down, less budget, windsurfing was less popular, and you just feel it. And suddenly I have this feeling, I say, it will come back, and it will come back really big, because now having foiling Olympic, come on, Olympic finally looks good. Look at those we don't even have to talk about it. Mistral 1 design, RS6. It just, who wants to do that? When you're 15 years old, this is your goal, you want to do RS6? No way.
No, I want to do a spoke like Josh Stone.
Exactly. Or you want to be a speeder or a slalom race or something. Like in bicycle, nobody. If this is the bike, you go. And it's the same bike as the pro, you can have it and you can buy it. And in the Olympic, they're using still a good bike. And in skiing as well. It's not like Olympic have this mono ski and everybody's on the same ski and whatever, It's just in sailing. It's just... And
okay,
now,
but foiling like T-foils the way there are, or maybe something a little bit more complicated, like L foils in front, and
there's so much room. There's so much room to go, but it is actually good to have some rules, because it could actually also ruin like the way of development. Like you invest all your money in those T4s and everything, and suddenly someone comes with something completely new. Maybe he was lucky even testing it and it just works, and just destroying everybody. It's also not good, because then all for the brands, investing in molds and whatever you did, it's just then shit, throw it away.
But you know what? You know why I ask? Because for speed purposes, not even speed sailing, but speed in general, this T-foil is kind of limiting us in terms of control a little bit, because you're on this one pressure point, you're on this one little how you say, like a pivot point, right? And we are probably closer to boats than we are to kites in how the physics work. And boats are not on one T-foil. I mean, the Moth is the most unstable, hard to sail boat ever, and that's on a T-foil, you know? And the America's Cup boats, the catamarans, they're all on, like, you know, L-foils in front, and then those little rudder T's in the back, you know? And is this where we're going? Is this, you know, because like for speed sailing as well, you really think you're into speed sailing, you've gone over 50. How much can you go with a plating hull? 55? But you're gonna need like 50 knots of wind, right? So, but you don't want to do speed on a T-foil because you're gonna fucking kill yourself, you know?
I know exactly what you mean, and a few brands already tested it. You know, something like like with those let's say main foils for the lift and stabilizer in the back and stuff, and it works. I mean, it flies, it goes. It's like with any other sport. When windsurfing started, nobody could predict that one day they're going to do freestyle moves like they do today. It's impossible, because how would you ever be able to do this with a windsurf board? So to ask a question like where it will be, like, right now with foil, this is open, like completely open. I believe still in some disciplines it will be still a little bit limited, like for example wave sailing, as you said, with the reticle. Remember when I said you just look reticle like with the foil? Of course, right now when I saw this also movie when Kai Lenny with his other friend, this guy was surfing in the back and Kai Lenny was in the front on the foil. I mean, if you look at this video, you're like, fuck, I want to be the guy in the back there in the tube and smacking the lip. And but it's just a different feel. Like in cars, you have the one likes rally, the other one likes Formula One. Motorbikes, you have the MotoGP and you have the motocross. It's a completely different thing. So some guys, they like the radical and let's say the slappy feeling, the jumpy, the wind, and the other one likes more like the, let's say, foil, you know, you don't hear anything, the speed, the sensitive movement. But definitely it's foiling takes. I mean, look foiling right now in general. Boats, kayaks, bicycles, everything goes on foil now on the water, and then this e-foils and everything. Even it goes so much more direction mainstream now. Everybody, you can buy an e-foil, knee on it, lie on it first, push a little bit, go, and you can learn the balance on an e-foil. But maybe one day you get bored by the e-foil. You think like, oh, why do I not get the wing? And if you can e-foil, you can learn how to wing foil. So for the mainstream, for the public who had no intention ever to start windsurfing, the doors are much more open now, coming into the sport from another sport, from a normal e-foil, which could become very much a mainstream sport, big time. Because if you look at all the lakes in Switzerland, not much wind and pitch flat, e-foiling through the mountains is just so beautiful. It's sick. And then you get the wing, and then from the wing, you know, then you start to attach the wing on the board, and then you're back on the windsurfer, are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Full circle.
It's actually almost like a reverse. It
Full
all
circle.
started with surfing, and then they put a foil, and then they get the wing or the kite, and then they attach the wing and the kite on the board, and you're back to windsurfing, are you? So I see very much that this is a big chance actually for windsurfing to grow, and also all those kids. I mean, when I'm here just foiling by myself somewhere just for fun, people on the beach are like, oh, what is this? can I try? Or even the kids, they were walking around because it looks sick. It's just like this wing and this big thing, and you're flying basically. And there's so much interest from non-windsurfer, and they asking questions, and you feel like there's definitely something. Of course, it takes years until, but I definitely feel that it's going to be really good. For is the future already, and
Okay.
it's going to help the sport a lot, definitely.
So full circle next 10, 15 years. Okay, we've been talking for fucking ages now. We always end on some quick hitters, you know, a couple questions I ask all the same to all the guys. So quickly though, what are your pet peeves?
Hey, wait. Pet peeves. I don't need you know my English. I'm Swiss, so you need some translation there. What's
Like
pet
something
peeves?
that annoys you, like almost on a physiological level. Like, I don't know, for me it's the dentist, you know, like I cannot stand it, you know, like.
You know what I hate? When someone is grabbing my nipples. This is just my reaction. Somebody grab my nipples, I'm just like bang immediately. You know, do you?
I know, yeah. You didn't punch me though.
I think I punched Gunnar.
Could be. Okay, how many times a day do you pee your wetsuit?
Whenever I have to, I do.
Limitless. What is your guilty pleasure?
Development. I would spend all my money on exactly just that. That's the technical part. Actually, my job is I would spend money at the moment for so many molds for developing any whatever front head foils, whatever, but I can't. So that's mine.
Arnon said it was wanking, so you're a bit in a different scenario.
I'm older than him. That's
Your top 5 windsurfers of all time.
Top 5 windsurfers of all time. Well, of course, you have to start with the top. It's Robin Nash, which when I was a kid, Robin Nash was, then there was Björn Dankebeck, and then of course Antoine Albo, because I was literally competing with him or against him, whatever. So those top 3. And then I have a lot of, because I'm so much into it, but still Sean Ordonez. Why? Because this is what he did. I always wanted to be. There was this guy shaping boards, and then he went there and did those 360 and those duck jive, and I was like, wow, that guy is so cool. Sean Ordonez. I want to be like him. So the 5th one, don't know. I think who really impresses me it's Karen. Karen, I competed in so many Swiss competition in France, where there was like 40 knots of mist or wind, wave or whatever, and he was kicking ass the guy. She was kicking ass the guys. I mean, the guys just pass her on the straight, but then she somehow manages always to she impressed me many times through my career, still today, by the way.
Okay.
So there we find, right?
Yes, not a bad top 5. Most underrated windsurfer of all time.
Jeez, I don't know. That's this is I think freestylers in general deserve much more, because they do things and they push the sport in such another direction, and still today, and how many events per year? This is so sad.
Yeah.
And they deserve more. They definitely deserve much more. I know wave sailing is also not, and also don't have too many competitions, but at least more than freestyle. But what the freestyle guys did in such a short time, in those 10 years from when it started to how it looks today, and what they do is just insane. So I think they deserve much more.
Yeah. This is gonna be easy. Foil freestyle, yes or no?
Sorry?
Foil freestyle as a contest, yes or no?
Oh, absolutely. It's the future.
Obstacles in slalom, yes or no?
I loved it because it was Super X was there and it was really fun. But I think it should really be limited. Not doing spokes and stuff, because when the pros start to crash in a spoke, then the spectators think like, "What? This is a world champion just crashing." So obstacles, absolutely, because if you crash on the obstacle, it's normal for the spectator to look at it, and I like it.
I agree, 100%. Beach starts in slalom, yes or no?
Oh, what I always hated, no, yes, definitely yes, because I felt like for so many years the slalom competition got a bit boring. The 4 jives, and again the 4 jives, and then the 4 jives. The races I remember were those long distance, Fuerteventura, Gran Canaria, whatever. Go up there, do the long distance, or like 8 jives, 10 jives, and this really short leg, like just like 30 meters, where you're not sure, oh, should I shift myself or should I go clue first for this 30 meters? And should be much, much, much more variable. Definitely. Beach start, perfect.
Yeah. One spot you'd have to sail every day for the rest of your life.
Naralu.
Even with all the flies.
Don't care.
You have to be there every day. Sharks, flies, sharp reef.
You have to be there every day. So basically live there.
Yeah, you have to be there.
No, I'm right here where I want to be, Market River. What else do I want? It's perfect. It's my dream.
Yeah. Your worst competitor. A guy that, like you see him in your heat and you're like, fuck.
My competitor is not so much in windsurfing competition, but it's also with the brand. It's as a shaper. So my worst competitor in general. I have so many. I don't know. I don't know. It's I think there is no really worst competitor. They're all at the same level for me. They're all enemies. I can't answer that one.
You want to prove all of them. Prove all of them
I'm
wrong.
not sure if I want to prove them. I think I have this inner thing. I can't. I wanted too much. Like with the cells, I started and I couldn't stop anymore. And Karen was like, "Patrik, come on. It's okay. It's okay. We tested the cell. The cell is good. It's enough. It's enough." And I can't. I have this one more idea. I need to do it. I need to test it. And one more. I can't stop. So I think I'm my own enemy.
So maybe it's you. Maybe you are your worst competitor.
My inner other Patrik is my worst enemy.
Yeah. And last but not least, who would you like to hear on this podcast? Who would you be like, sick, I'll watch that. I'll listen to that. It's actually the best is listen in the car,
Does it has to be a windsurfer?
No, somebody from around, can't be really Roger Federer. I don't think he's going to show up, but, from the windsurfing industry,
I don't know why. I just said the name before, and from all my heroes still today, it's Jean Ordonez. Sorry. That's my guy.
Yeah.
If you get hold of him and do with him, oh well, that will be so much fun.
Maybe you should ask him. Definitely a lot of stories there with the Quattro, and now he's doing his own thing, and
now with all those big wave surfing stuff and everything, you're like, wow.
Yeah,
cool, very cool.
Yeah,
cool guy.
He's actually not much older than you, is he?
I don't even know. I don't know.
Can't be. Anyway, thanks, Patrik. Thank you for your time. We went deep into my night and kind of into your day. So
Oh, actually, sun is coming up slowly. Yeah. No, it's good. Thanks for doing this, by the way, Maciek. I think it's a real great thing. It's not just showing someone, like if you open a magazine and you read a story about someone, it's always the story they want you to see. And in this discussion, like 1 hour, 2 hour, you just cannot hide who you are.
Exactly.
Sooner or later. I mean, when we started this whole thing, I was like, Patrik, be careful. And Maciek, don't let yourself pull into, don't say anything too bad about someone or whatever, don't let yourself go too much. I think I did quite okay, right? I was sometimes I really had to pull myself together. I'm like, I would love to say more what I wanted to say, but it's just okay. It's a good balance. No, it's good. It's really good what you do. I like it actually.
Yeah. I just hate to see like a post of somebody like great session with the 7.0 and the 115, like, God damn it. Why? Like, you're wasting my time doing this, So now at least here we can get into the nitty-gritty, and if you're really interested, you're gonna find.
I talked yesterday with Karen a little bit, and how we should, because it's a long time. It's not like just a 5-minute interview where you just, thanks to sponsors and this. You always say the nice things, and that's it. And I was like, Karen, if we go more in detail, what should I? Well, how should I? And she said basically, Patrik, look at Trump. I mean, this guy, everybody, the whole world looks at him, and he just, Patrik, in this little world windsurfing, you can say whatever you want, basically. And she's right. If you look what's happening there and you have to hold your hands in front of your face, how can a guy in this position say things like that? So I wasn't afraid anymore. What's happening, I was like, Patrik, all relaxed. There are way worse guys out there who say things they shouldn't say. So in this interview, you can say whatever you like.
Okay. That's how I'm going to convince Finian to come on.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Finian is good. Finian has these two sides. Huh? He has this really polite, good side. And then he has this inner swine like I have. He has it as well. And it comes out, sometimes comes out, and that's it. It's all good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Patrik, thank you. Appreciate the time. I appreciate the stories. Take care. Rip some winter. I guess you're middle of winter. Good waves.
I have a bad shoulder. I have an 8 mil tear in my rotator cuff, and I'm not sailing like 4 months now, and then I have another 3 months to go.
Holy shit. Okay.
Takes time. Shoulders is the worst.
Heal up then. Wish you health and luck with everything you're doing. Take care, mate.
Let's hope those competitions come back. Next year is going to be a normal year again. And
yeah.
Cool. All right.
Appreciate it.
Cheers, Martin. Thanks.
Thanks a lot for watching. A really interesting podcast there. I love the guys mixed in the industry, and they've also sailors. Really good stuff from Patrik Diethelm. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up. Obviously, I'm going to stick the other podcasts from other weeks up there. And if you want to support the channel by chucking in a bit of money and maybe some beers, you can do that in the link below. Maciek is working super hard on these podcasts, and I think he's getting better and better and better. As always, you can say who you want to see in future podcasts below, and we'll do our best to bring them to you. Rumour is Kevin Pritchard is coming up.